humans are humans everywhere. It doesn't matter if they're magical humans or anything. There's always going to be dissent among the ranks. There's always going to be people that have very off-color ideas about themselves and what they should be doing and how entitled they are to a better life and having people under their power. It's like that's basic history, right?
This is the future.
Hello and welcome to the Alternate Future podcast, where we chat with indie sci-fi creators about their work, the world, and anything in between or beyond. Today I'm here with Kay Gorman. Kelly is a science fiction and fantasy addict from Western Canada who dabbles in different genres. In addition to being a fiction lover, she's also a history and culture nerd with a focus on China, Taiwan, and Japan. When she's not writing, she can be found devouring books, movies, television series, and the occasional video game. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So the Taiwan connection continues on my show. And I understand you lived in Taiwan for a while. You're, I think, the third or fourth guest I've had that has lived there. So what inspired that trip, first of all?
Well, I got my degree in Asian studies with the language of choice being Mandarin Chinese, and was looking for what the heck I should be doing after my degree, and English teaching in Taiwan turned up, and I was like, oh, well, that seems like a fun little thing to do, a tropical island. And it was a pretty good time there, yeah.
Yeah, if you can work it, university degrees are a good way to get around the world, aren't they?
They are, yes.
Did you happen to know, because J.G. Green, I think, was the one who recommended you to me. Did you know her then in person?
We never met face to face. We were in different cities, and I think it was that the meetings tended to happen at an awkward time for me, and I would have to travel to Taipei and then travel back. But we did email and chat on Messenger and such.
Oh, so you have had some communication then.
Yes.
Because Ned Marcus was the first one. Actually, it was my first guest on the podcast, and I think he's still in Taiwan. And there's some connection there. I don't know if you knew him as well, but I know he knew Jenny. So
I don't think I've met him.
So how long were you in Taiwan for then?
Just over 3 years.
Okay, and that was teaching English most of the time.
Teaching English, writing books, enjoying the sunshine.
So what was the weather like compared to, well, you're currently in Victoria area of Canada, so compared to there, what's the weather like in Taiwan then?
Well, in Victoria, it usually sits around 20 to 25 during the summer. In Taiwan, it usually sits between 30 and 35 with a very high humidity, and like that kind of sun that you just walk out and you just get hit by it, or you go into a store and your glasses just immediately fog up or something.
Was there a lot of air conditioning there, or are you just living with the heat all the time?
A lot of air conditioning. Most stores have the air conditioning. It's hard to live without the air conditioning there.
Right, yeah. So I was wondering, did you then get to sate some of your interest in history and culture of the area while you were there?
Oh yes, I learned quite a lot about Taiwanese politics, the nuanced situation of the island. Like it's quite a neat place to visit and quite a neat place to learn about.
And so that sounds like recent culture and history. Did you manage to travel around the area much to older stuff?
Yeah, I did get down to Kaohsiung a bit, and I saw a few of the older history. Like I think I saw an old fortification. But a lot of my historical interests are more Second World War and more recent. So that is what I find that's more what I'm nerdy into.
Right. And is that would that maybe be because it's a sort of a part of history that in the West we don't really learn much about in that time period, but obviously was still very significant? or what is it about that particular period, the sort of more recent post-World War II period, that interests you?
It's interesting to me because there is such a complex political situation and cultural situation there, where everyone knows about, say, Mao Zedong and what happened, but most people who are in the West just kind of know the top level stuff, but no one really no one really knows offhand about Taiwanese history and Chiang Kai-shek and how Chiang Kai-shek uh, how his reign affected the island, how it affected the culture, um, how he and Mao Zedong are often described as two sides of the same coin. Um, and then add to that, the island was also under Japanese occupation from well before the Second World War. And before then, it's quite an interesting history to learn about, and a lot of fairly horrific stuff that happened even more recently, like in the 70s and 80s. That yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the West, we don't learn a lot of the sort of World War II atrocities in that region. It's interesting because the Germans, I mean, they kind of have a cultural guilt, I think, from World War II, the events, but perhaps not so much the Japanese. I don't know what your impression of that is, but they obviously did a lot of horrific stuff in the Southeast Asian area as well.
Yeah, so I've also lived in China too, and when I was in China, I was in an area where a lot of the universities evacuated to during the uh, Japanese invasion, and in China, it's very like the Nanjing massacre is still a very relevant topic and such. But in Japan, it's not really taught what the Japanese did and such. It, and I'm no expert in this, but it does seem that it's been a bit like some of the atrocities have been glossed over for the general population. Um, and they learn about the war and the bomb, and they go, yeah, the Japanese government was crazy at that point, and we're much better now.
Let's hope, yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing for me is I've taken a bit of a, well, it's always been an interesting area of the world as well because we don't learn much about it. But I think recently, and maybe this ties in more with alternate history rather than alternate futures, but the Southeast Asian area and the potential sort of ice age level history of civilization, sort of discussions that are happening now. Do you follow any of that? And I was curious of what your impression is. Like, certain buildings that have been discovered, the potential idea that there was an entire subcontinent that was above the water during the ice age, and so
I
avenues for a huge amount of civilization to be living on that's now lost.
huh. I think I might know what you're talking about. Is it there was that Netflix series that had the archaeological ruins
Yeah,
and
that's the
such,
one
but
that's sort of popularized it. Yeah,
yeah,
recently.
I've only watched about half an episode of that, and I don't really know about the conversations that are happening regarding that. Alas, I sometimes I'm a little bit, sometimes I'm very out of the loop.
I think it's still considered fringe, but I find the very idea, even ignoring potential lost civilizations, the idea that the something I hadn't thought of till recently, until it was brought up, is the with the ice age sort of freezing up a lot of the water into glaciers, a huge amount of the Earth's surface would be revealed that isn't available now. And so it would be natural to have humans living on that part of the world, sort of coastal areas that no longer exist, or exist underwater, I guess. And
Hmm.
so a huge amount of human history potentially just unaccounted for, basically. And they are finding, I mean, let's say mainstream science is now suggesting an entire subcontinent between Australia and New Zealand up in that area, which I think New Zealand's trying to lay claim to as well. But
Yeah, it sounds it sounds a like a different version or a different interpretation perhaps of the stories of Atlantis or of the flood, right?
well, it is, yeah, and
It,
they do tie it into those, interestingly. And it remains to be seen how much reality is in those thoughts. But it's interesting, yeah.
mhm.
Because if you watch the rest of the series, you'll see he actually talks quite a bit about the potential massive flooding about 10 to 12,000 years ago around the globe, which is interesting. But we're getting off topic, maybe. I just on a personal note, we're planning a trip to Japan soon. Is there anything we should make sure to definitely see?
Oh gosh, it would depend on your interests, but there's a lot to see in Japan. Do you know what cities you're planning to go to?
Well, I think Tokyo is going to be one of the big ones. So I like the tech stuff. My wife likes the sort of like say monastery type things.
Well, there's one thing that I didn't quite get to go to when I was visiting there. I just went to Japan about a month and a half ago. It's an art exhibit, and it's done with projection, and it's like an interactive projection um, exhibit that I've heard is really quite well done.
Ah,
Um, I've actually experienced kind of similar in one of the Taiwanese art museums, and it was they had projected images and characters that would actually interact with your movements and such. And it was very well done in Taiwan, and I hear that the one in Japan is like huge A-level gold star rating.
excellent. Yeah, I think I might have seen little small clips of that on the James May. I don't know if you've seen that one, James May, Our Man in Japan Amazon series,
Is he one of the
former Top Gear.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I think I did watch that. Yeah. I can't I watched it a while ago, so I can't quite remember it. But yeah, it is one of the art exhibits that's kind of notable in Tokyo.
Yeah, yeah, something to
Yeah.
put on the list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you did mention sort of briefly in the end of your bio that you play video games or used to at some point. Do you still manage to play any? And if so, which ones
Uh,
are you interested in? Or were you?
well, I haven't really had the time, sadly, to play video games. Plus, I had a wrist injury, specifically to my thumb tendons, which doesn't do well for controllers. But uh, most of my games are on PlayStation 2. I gave my Xbox 360 to my mother so that she could watch Netflix.
Okay.
So I'm kind of old school. I played a lot of Final Fantasy. If there are any, I my usual MO is I go to the pawn shop and I find the used video games and I go, oh, I remember hearing good things about that. I will get it because they're usually pawn shop cheap. And if there are any gamer nerds in the audience, I do have a copy of Haunting Ground, which I think I managed to grab for $30, and it's now worth like 600.
Oh, it's a good deal then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as this is a sci-fi podcast, also writing related. So how did your interest in science fiction, well, we'll get to the writing in a second, but just science fiction in general, sort of develop?
Well, I've always kind of been a sci-fi fantasy person, more fantasy than sci-fi usually. Um, but I was raised on a steady diet of Star Wars and the old Flash Gordon and such. But I kind of side I got into it a bit sideways, I think. I started off by writing fantasy, and then I after I kind of finished for the first arc in my fantasy series, and I thought, I'm gonna try a science fiction series. And I'd been reading Lindsay Buroker's Fallen Empire series, and I quite enjoyed it. And I thought, I'm gonna write something like I want to do some space stuff. So I did some space stuff and had a really good time with it, and people seem to like it. So I'm focusing on that now, and I'm just catching up on my sci-fi reading because I was more predominantly fantasy, so I have some homework to do.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting. On your website, the one of your main profile pics, you have an air very much of Vasquez in Aliens. This is the character that came to mind. She's the big sort of machine gun wielding character in the second
Is that
Alien.
the one where I'm kind of like this and I look like I'm gonna
Yeah,
like murder someone?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what come to mind when I see that picture.
yeah, I had I just changed out my profile pictures to not use that one because well, I got a new one, and then I remember a friend of mine was actually one of their friends was saying, "Oh, I'm trying to, find a roommate to share the hotel with the for a conference." And he goes, "Well, how about Kelly?" And she took one look at that picture, and she was like, "No, I think Kelly's gonna cut me."
Yeah, you do. You do look different in that particular photo from the rest of the impression
Yeah,
of
yeah.
you.
I was trying to give a little like fierce thing, but you
You're
know.
channeling one of your characters in your sci-fi series, maybe. So what was your path in general to writing then? Because I mean, you went into a degree that was a little bit different. Of course, all degrees take writing, but
Yeah. Well, I actually started trying to go for English, but then I took an Asian studies course and realized, oh my God, this is great. But I've always been writing, like, even I'm pretty sure there's like a story uh, from when I was 8 or 9 about me writing a little story about my magical horse, trying to, doing that. And all throughout high school, my hobby was just I would do kind of fantasy role play, uh, text-based role plays online, and so it's always been there. And when I back in was it 2010? It's when the KDP platform came out, and people started putting out the self-pub books. I thought, why don't this? Why don't I write a novel? This would be a good avenue because I didn't think I was too shy and insecure. I didn't want to start querying traditional publishers or anything, especially when I had nothing done. But yeah, that's how that started. I decided to write a novel and kept going.
so you're just like, oh, that sounds cool. I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you didn't think about traditional publishing at all then from the beginning?
No, it was very intimidating, and I didn't think um, one that I was really in the mental capacity to deal with a lot of rejection letters. Um, Plus, I was going through university and trying to find my own path in life, and not sure if writing would, work out at all. So I thought, okay, let's just do this as a hobby and try it, and it's worked out. So that's good.
Good, good. Yeah. So what was the first series you wrote then, or the first books you wrote?
I wrote the Elemental Wars. It was not called that first off. I think it was called the Mishka Files because I I don't know. But I wrote those, and it's kind of a cross. It's technically, I guess, urban fantasy, but it's a real cross-genre mix of urban fantasy, young adult, with a bit of sci-fi thrown in for fun. So it's not exactly easy to market. People love it, but it's not exactly a large seller, let's say. I don't think I've made any profit on that. But I really love the series, and I actually, it was kind of based on one of the old role plays that me and friends did, and it was hopefully going to segue into co-writing with that friend, and we actually did manage to put out a couple of books together, so that was nice.
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah. We'll come back briefly to that as one of the books we'll discuss in a little bit. I noticed that some of your books are cross genre. Were they some of the early ones? Like as you mentioned with Elemental Wars, there's another one that's also you list as, I think, fantasy steampunk portal, which is quite a
Oh,
cross genre too.
that was a shared world, and it's mostly sword and sorcery, but it's technically science fiction because it ties into with the greater world, which is very Stargate, let's say.
Right, that's what comes to mind with portal
Yeah.
books these days, isn't it? Yeah. So when I was looking through your backlist on Amazon, I noticed that they're almost all dated 2020. So did you, I'm assuming you re-released most of them then. Did you have much of a backlist prior to that?
Um, I re-released all of the Elemental Wars under the new branding and such, with the new covers and such, new editing, and then I think I wrote the sci-fi starting 2017, and I threw in that sword and sorcery probably around 2018. But I haven't. Everything's more 2020. I've been working on books in the background, but I haven't released anything new since 2020.
So that is again, because I think I saw the sci-fi ones as being published mostly in 2020 as well. So did you write a number of them and then sort of publish them fairly
Oh, I
close?
see. So what happened with those is that I first self-published them in 2017, 2018, 2019, and then in 2019 I got into talks with Aethon Books, and they decided to re-release them. So they took them all and re-released them their under their publisher.
Oh, okay,
And so that's why that timing is like that.
right. So you said you haven't been writing anything recently then,
Well, I've been writing, it's just I haven't been
publishing,
putting it out.
right?
We're waiting for me to finish 3 books, and the whew, it's the longest I've ever taken to write some books. And the first book ended came in with a word count the same length of The Return of the King.
Okay.
So it's
Bit long
but
for a sci-fi, yeah.
yeah, but my beta reader finished it in 11 hours, so I was like,
Wow.
okay, we got a page turner, yay. And I'm working on finishing the second book, and yeah, it's been very fun to write. It's just taken a lot longer due to certain things in my life.
All right. So are these also going to be published via Aethon or you're doing
Yes.
themselves? Okay.
Yeah, so they'll be published via Aethon and available in audio, ebook, paperback, and such.
And do you feel that some of the time changes in your writing is due to now having someone else waiting on it, maybe, or now that you have an
Um,
actual, schedule, or is
I
it
think
just because this is
it's
more ambitious?
well, I think it's one more ambitious. Two, I'm trying to follow up with things, and I think well, three, the characters seem to have this habit of like taking my plots and then like putting them like folding up the pieces of paper and sticking them in wine bottles and just making Molotov cocktails out of them and just completely going off course. Um, but with my life situation right now, it's hard to get get focused. For a while, I was both caregiving and working a job that was supposed to be part-time, but ended up being 5 days a week, which, yeah.
Yeah, part-time
And
jobs, I don't they almost always go that way, don't they?
yes, the part-time,
Um,
35-hour.
it's an excuse to pay you less for the same amount of work.
Yes. And, but the schedule has kind of straightened out now. I, I'm not working the part-time job anymore, and it's just, me at home doing the caregiving and uh, doing the usual routine and slowly tackling all the household projects that I've been putting off.
All right. So I mean, with all this going on in your life, do you have a writing schedule you try to stick to at all?
I do. I try to stick to it, but it the nature of the caregiving is that it gets kind of unpredictable. Because if suddenly there's appointments or suddenly someone needs to go to the store for some reason, it's okay, we better do this now and get it out of the way, and then I can go back and do maybe a few hours of deep work before I have to figure out dinner type of thing.
Right. Okay. So would you consider yourself a pantser or a plotter then when you're developing your stories?
I I originally considered myself the plantser, where you kind of attempt to plot and then pantsing things happens, and I still consider myself that as well because often the pantsing just doesn't really work out. But um, lately, I've been finding that getting more structure in has been really crucial for figuring out what is wrong with the current story and why isn't it going forward in a way that feels right. Because when I write the books, like if they go through something and it doesn't feel like it's ringing true to me, it just feels off, and I have to figure out what's going on, and
So,
that's been taking a lot of time.
so I'm curious then, when you're writing those segments, so what is it that makes you feel like, how do you realize that? Is it like it just, oh, this isn't working, or do you feel like is it a slog when you're writing it? And
It's
then you think, oh, maybe something's not working because it's taking me a long time to write this bit, or
uh, often and this is one of the main problems, often the slog will happen later on, and
okay.
I'll have to go back and find out like why isn't this working? And yeah, I think I also for this book tried a couple of different experimental writing, like new to me writing techniques, and then I had to go back and redo a bunch of stuff. So, oh well.
Yeah.
We live and learn, right? That's how humans learn, trial and error. And
So did you use sprints at all for any of it, or
I always do
you
sprints.
always do? Okay.
Yeah, there's a group of authors. There's a few Discord servers that they have the bots that will time the sprints, and you can write together. And I'm part of a server that you do the sprints, and afterwards, if everyone's willing, they might. Um, there's like a small chat where they might share some of the writing that they've done, and it's kind of spurs us to do more.
Right. So if you've been using sprints most of the time, then I'm just wondering about the editing typically, because I would expect at least if you when you start using sprints, there'd be a lot of editing to do afterwards. But perhaps as you get more comfortable with the writing process, there's less, or how do you find that?
I tend to these days I tend to do the more Dean Wesley Smith cycling, so I'll actually go back through what I'd written before and do a little editing and rewriting while I go. Um, but I find editing, it takes me a while because I'm a huge perfectionist. Um, and I really like to get everything all nice before I send it off to my editor.
So how many rounds of editing will you do before you send it off then?
Probably two, because at this point it's fairly clean. But I'll go through and do one, and then the second round is usually just basic proofreading and syntax. And then with the editor, we usually do two rounds. So she will do a really good she and I work really well together. So she'll do a really good in-depth edit, and I will go through all the comments and all the corrections, and we'll go back and forth a bit. I will ask any questions where I was a little confused about something if it wasn't clear to me. And I'll also ask for clarification on certain grammar rules, because I'm an ex-English teacher, so sometimes I get like sometimes I know a rule, but she knows them so much better. And then she'll take it again and then do another round, and by that time it's usually a lot better. And she seems to do a mix of copy editing and a little bit of developmental, which is quite nice.
Is that an editor with Athon, or did you find one somewhere else?
I found her. It's Z Monody, and I now work with her through Athon.
Okay. So do you try to keep to a publishing schedule then? Because I know you said you haven't written or published, anything since about 2020, but you've got 3 getting ready now.
Yeah, well, I try my best to, but these days it's kind of like they'll be done when they're done.
Right.
And I wish they were done sooner, but yeah. We're waiting for 3 books to be finished before we do the rapid release. I also have a second series I'll be working on after I finish 3 books in this one. And hopefully by the time those 2 series are out, we'll see if they're doing well.
Right. So rapid release would be how much space in between each book then?
I am not sure where the current guidelines sit on that. I've been a little bit out of the loop for the marketing stuff, and I trust Athon's judgment in this, because I know they're really, really good at what they do. So they and I will be going back and forth and figuring things out for that.
And is this a new series then, or is it following on from one of the others?
It's a spin-off of the sci-fi. It's first one is featuring my very foul-mouthed mechanic off on her own ship, having great misadventures. And the next one is kind of a direct sequel to, but spinning off into a different character from the original series.
So when you say that the first one with the mechanic, is that a prequel kind of thing where she meets up with him, or is that after the events of the series?
It's going to be 10 years after.
After, okay.
Yeah. Looking into her mess of a life.
So you mentioned Athon does a lot of the marketing. How much time do you spend on marketing, or prior to when you had your time constrained?
I spent so with Athon, they do all the heavy lifting with the marketing. I don't touch Facebook ads or anything for the series. I think, and they definitely don't require me to do they are happy with me doing a newsletter and posting on social media and doing the general promotions. I personally will probably also do some Facebook ads out of my own page, and will probably do my own giveaways. That's just personal choice for me. But they do the marketing. They are very good at what that being what a publisher should be.
Right. Yeah, that's good, because you don't think a lot of smaller publishers take on that role very willingly. So that's pretty good. Yeah. But I mean, you still do like newsletter and social media type stuff. Yeah. How do you balance that time in with your writing?
Oh, usually very poorly. I was trying to do a newsletter twice a month, and I don't think I've sent one since mid-June. I had actually hired a personal assistant in January, but when I got my little injury at my job and suddenly stopped having income, suddenly the social media and newsletters had started to go by the wayside because I couldn't afford her. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I think I'm way overdue for doing a lot of social media scheduling. I'm currently trying to finish this book and then get it off, and then I want to schedule some like basic social media for like a month out.
Do you do any dictation then? Considering your injury, especially.
I have in the past. I wrote Renegades and one of the Elemental Wars books using dictation, and then I typically would rewrite it after that. But it was really I've had success with it in the past, and I actually bought a fancy new microphone to try it with. But with where this current book is in, it's a lot of rewriting, so it's
Mm.
not so much with the it's a little harder to dictate when you're trying to shuffle text around.
Yeah. But I guess it sounds like you tried it a while ago, and I imagine the technology's improved considerably since then as well. I mean, not for your current projects, but potentially future projects. Yeah.
Yeah, uh, there's a lot more coming out, and I noticed that like I use Dragon Naturally Speaking 13 Professional, which is pretty old now, but it's still working fairly well. They just came out with 16. It seems like they kind of just snuck this release out um, for an astronomical price. And I feel like maybe in the next year or two, there will be a lot more competition for that.
Mm.
Already there's more competition. I've had success dictating on in Google Docs, just using the native dictation there. And I've heard of a lot of different dictation programs coming up that people are having a lot of success with.
Yeah, I mean there are quite a number, and like you said, I mean I did a test not too long ago with a few other people, and we're in England right here, so I mean you can imagine the accents. But we tried Google and Microsoft Word, both have them built in, and they were surprisingly good actually. I was amazed at how well it understood the speaking. I think probably mine was the worst of anyone, so which was strange.
Well, Microsoft actually bought Dragon Naturally Speaking.
Okay.
Um, and I suspect that they're probably using a lot of it, like integrating it in, but also keeping it as a fairly expensive product. I
Cash cow,
don't
yeah.
know. I'm not really up on the tech. I'm just, I feel in my heart that they've probably taken some of that code and are just integrating it in with their native apps.
Yeah, it certainly
I
makes
have
sense.
Yeah, I have heard that the Microsoft Word dictation has vastly improved and that there are people that are very impressed with it.
Yeah,
Um,
I was suitably impressed, and like just testing it this year, just a few months ago. Unfortunately, I don't think I have the mindset, the stream of thought to be able to dictate very well, but it's something I may have to look into, especially as my
yeah.
eyes faded.
Well, I think it's Scott Baker who has a book out on that, and the general consensus in the dictation groups is that it is a new skill that you do have to train yourself for.
Right.
Like you wouldn't expect someone to just switch over to using their other hand for writing, right? It's kind of similar for training a new thought process into dictation. There's ways that you can um, help train your brain to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard people who are somewhat natural, and it's quite impressive when they switch over. I think one author I heard said she was writing like something like 500 words a day and switched over to dictation and was easily doing, like 2,500.
Yeah,
So I was jealous of that.
yeah.
I was wondering, you have on the bottom of your descriptions disclaimers regarding swearing and violence in most of your books. Now I can understand why, but well, why? But I was wondering the disclaimers themselves. Did you get complaints from that, or is it just
A
something
little
you wanted to
bit,
put in?
yeah. Um, there's Well, for one, I did get complaints on the first series I released because people were thinking, oh, the main character is 16 or 17. This must be a young adult book. And I don't know what 17-year-olds they've been talking to, but in my experience, the teenagers are the ones that are swearing the most. Like they're up there with mechanics and sailors. Um, and so I would get these lovely little reviews and uh, messages in my email saying, well, it's such a lovely story, but it's just too much unnecessary foul language. And I wanted to show that, introduce it to my school's library. So if you could just not. And I'm thinking, I'm probably not going to rewrite, 300,000 words at this point.
Yeah, given what's in the libraries these days, it's probably not a big deal anymore. But,
Yeah, I mean, I was remembering, like not in the elementary school library, certainly, but my high school libraries had, I mean, there was the Anne Rice stuff, there was all sorts of stuff in that library, and I remember, I think it was Christopher Pike who had the Remember Me series, and that was more of a young adult, and there was definitely swearing in there. And I was thinking like, hmm, probably not as much swearing as in mine, but then again, they're not in an active war situation.
yeah, it's always curious though, because maybe we'll get to that. I won't talk too much more about swearing, but does it feel anachronistic from the point of view of those characters, do you think? Or is it kind of a stand-in for whatever they might be saying in their particular time period? Is that the way
Oh,
you might
so
view it?
for the like for the science fiction, I
Yeah.
changed the swearing a bit. But in homage to the history of the F-bomb, um, I think it's been around for going on 400 years. And as a little note to all the people leaving me these lovely little reviews, I changed the swearing to also include it.
Okay.
So there's no like, uh, there's no Christian-based swearing. There's no like, God damn it type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
I switched it to gods. I did switch a little bit back into it for certain situations because they were going back into an area where it would be more prevalent. But for the most part, I just switched over and made up my own swears, but included the F-bomb in there because I felt it was accurate.
All right. So moving on to your sci-fi, well, your books in general then. So you have, I think, 4 series, is that right?
Yes, I have 4 series, although 2 of them could kind of merge into one.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, which two could merge into one? I'm curious then.
There's the Elemental Wars, but there was a second series that kind of branched off the Elemental Wars called Fury of the Wind. And
Okay.
those 2 books actually segue back into the Elemental Wars. And my box set actually has all 5 of the first books, including those other 2, um, for best reading experience.
And so are all these series basically finished then?
Well, I finished the first arc of the Elemental Wars. Uh, but when I started writing with my friend, we started a new arc, and that is unfinished. And I owe my readers 1 book that is still, it's got about 40,000 words in it. And unfortunately, it didn't work out with the co-writer. So I've been trying to kind of finish it on the back burner as well.
Right.
But I do have like cover art and such for that.
Okay. Yeah, because I kind of wanted to start with Elemental Wars. It felt, at least from the beginning, a little bit sci-fi, although it's clearly you could describe it as, I think, either urban fantasy or contemporary fantasy.
Yeah,
And there's magic in it, of course.
yeah.
Maybe you could give us a summary, and then we can go from there.
Well, it's feels more urban fantasy in the reading experience, but the backstory is very sci-fi. What happened is, like, say in the 1980s, a bunch of mages came over on spaceships from a different dimension looking for sanctuary because their their Earth in another dimension had gone massively uninhabitable. And they knew that even though they far overpowered the local population, there were a lot more of us, and eventually that would be a bad idea. And so they decided to be refugees and integrate. And that fast forward 20 years of that integration, plus all the magic and how that would affect technological progress. And the story is set around, gosh, I think it's around 2003, in a fictional country in the middle of the Atlantic, and just two countries at war with the mages in the background that are trying to not be involved.
Right. What was your thought process when you were sort of coming up with this idea? What did you want to do with the story, and what kind of inspired it?
Honestly, I was pantsing at that point. I knew I wanted to write about a fire elemental. I knew I wanted to involve magical creatures in the form of energy beings, and I just started from one point, and I just started going to the next logical process of where the story would go, and that's it. It was just action adventure, this one kind of coming of age, gaining in power uh, story, and
It was interesting because when I looked at the covers and was reading the blurbs, I had this feeling of Hunger Games meets the Phoenix Saga from X-Men kind of thing.
you know,
I don't know
that's
if
a good
that's
one. I should put that on the I should put that on the blurbs.
Oh, feel free. So you didn't have any of that in mind, like
No, it was another my friend described it as kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but with guns and swearing. And when I first started writing it, I hadn't actually seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, like the cartoon. But then now that I have, I'm like, that's actually pretty good, like modern day Avatar: The Last Airbender with guns and swearing.
One of the things that attracted me to the story, sort of right from the beginning, is as you said, the sort of the refugee slash colonization from another dimension, and you chose to have them sort of very logically decide to become refugees and integrate, rather than attempt to let's say head on tackle the indigenous culture with their overwhelming power. And so what was your process for that? Because you took the story into a war direction. So is there like any rebel factions within the mages that have
Oh yeah,
caused? I don't want to give away any
it's
plot
yeah,
spoilers if
it's
that's the case,
I
but
mean, humans are humans everywhere. It doesn't matter if they're magical humans or uh, anything. There's always going to be dissent among the ranks. There's always going to be people that have um, very off-color ideas about themselves and what they should be doing and how entitled they are to a better life and having people under their power. It's like that's basic history, right? Um, I was deep into my cultural studies at that point, and I finished the first book while I was living in China, and seeing the nuance of both the effect the Second World War had, the Japanese occupation, the Civil War, and then all the the Cultural Revolution, the starvation. Uh, so seeing how from the locals how that had affected the population and how they had fought against things, had to do other things. I think that did affect the way that series went. So it wasn't just a straight off war, but it was a war situation, and I I was trying to show like a country under attack, but still having to live.
and you are continuing to work on this and develop this series then, is that right? because you have the
I
spin-off
am,
from.
yes. It's just it, it doesn't do, again, I haven't made any profit on this, so it's a labor of love, and I have a manuscript that I really want to work on and rewrite and release because it's a really, really good story that well, I think it's a really good story that that I think readers would really enjoy, but I do need to take the time to make sure it's all done. I'm a perfectionist.
Right. Is this one being done by Aethon as well, or is it just the
No,
sci-fi series?
no, just the sci-fi
Right.
series.
Because I was wondering, so this one is one of them that's very sort of cross genres, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just a matter of finding where the readers are who would like this? Like, it's not so obvious of it when you have a cross genres story, obviously. So,
Yeah, I think because people who like it do really like it. But trying to get it in front of readers, try to get them to try it, it's more difficult.
have you tried sort of changing around the genres that you publish or the categories that you publish in?
I Yeah, and I rebranded so it looks more like it feels like it looks like an urban fantasy kind of with a younger protagonist, and it feels like a urban fantasy, but and it has the younger protagonist, and then later books will have the different protagonists on the cover, so people will know that not it's less young adult and such. Um, and I did the whole swearing and violence in the blurbs is also just to give people a heads up, both if they're into that, great, or if that would be off-putting, better to, I don't, I know that it's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's quite fine. I'm, I don't want a person reading the book if they're not going to like it.
yeah, yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Publishing or trying to find a space for stories that don't fit in that neat boxes.
Yeah, yeah, and then eventually you just kind of run out of marketing budget. So
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. Yeah. So the big sci-fi series then that you have is the Eurynome Code. Is that how you pronounce it?
I mean, my Greek is non-existent, but I've been pronouncing it Eurynome. Um, I usually tell people like your enemy, like your enemy.
Because
Um,
that was how I thought to pronounce it. I did a fair amount of looking into this, the mythologies and then this name, and apparently there's also Eurynome, which comes from a different derivation or something. But then that might be, I don't know. I'll let you tell it in a moment where you came from. But I understand there's this is a complex mythological character that has multiple variations, including a masculine demon version, apparently. Um, but yeah, if you could just sort of tell us where the name came from, first of all, and then where the idea for the story came from.
well, the name there's a couple of them, as you know, um, and even among that, if we're talking about the Greek version of a dawn of there was like the creation goddess. There's even a couple versions of that. Whereas the more recent one was retelling by I think um, a French author who reinterpreted the myth into a very Christian setting where it's like she's more like an Eve character with an Adam type alongside as or maybe Adam crossed with a snake too, because it's actually a snake. Um, but initially it was a different one. I did go with that retelling because one of the main themes is about um, scientists who take things and reinterpret things and then make it to their interpretation. Um, the I'm trying to figure out how to it's about the main character was a subject of a genetic engineering experiment that was horrific because apparently I'm good for the horror, that she escaped from. And she's been minding her own business and getting her little navigation license and life together, and is quite happy when stuff hits the fan. But one of the things I'm a little bit nerdy about is folklore. I did a bit, it was part of my degree where I did research into folklore and the different variations of folklore, especially things like the Cinderella cycle, if you've heard of that.
Not by that name, no.
Well, there's about 700 different variations of the Cinderella story across most continents. And you can, and they vary wildly, but they all have the same like markers in the story. Like sometimes Cinderella's even a guy. Sometimes Cinderella's mom comes back as a cow, as a talking cow. Sometimes there's a tree that like helps along. It's quite neat.
Tree is the one I'm familiar with, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And so you come across these different tales that are the same story but told in different ways across varying things, but it's still kind of the same story that's unifying across all of humanity. So I am a bit nerdy about folklore.
So, I mean, at its heart, your Eurynome Code is an action adventure story with a sort of
Yeah,
specially powered character in a war, basically.
Yes, it's a space opera action adventure with a dash of thriller and horror and maybe a smidgen of fantasy, but I've kind of masked it as science fiction development that's revealed later on.
All right. Did you have fun developing the world
Oh,
building on this?
I had so much fun.
It's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, I continue to have fun.
So how big has your universe grown then?
Oh, we have 3-star systems now, and all getting 2 of them getting stories, and there might be a 4th one coming in at some point. But around book 4, things are going to really crack open. It's going to be lovely.
Do you track your world building in any kind of, I don't know, book or big wall chart or something?
I attempt to. My organization is not the recommended one. I've got notes everywhere, and I tried to keep them like I've got notes of all my like different ship names and such in one binder, and then I've got random bits all on my phone, and I would highly recommend that everyone have a much better system of organization than I do. So that's I have the ADHD approach to world building.
Okay, great. So you do have, as you've kind of described, 2, I think, really topical issues within it. I know that they're not necessarily, well, maybe they will be developed as sort of a massive theme that goes, at least not in the first book. But you have, as you mentioned, sort of the scientists reinterpreting things in their own image, which seems to be a topical issue at the moment. But so how in your story then was this kind of developed and used? How did you sort of express the scientists abusing their understanding, as it were?
Blatantly illegal, and they shuffled over to a very remote location on Earth, because Earth. Sorry, I kind of put World War III into the past on Earth, where the laws were slack and unenforced, so that they could have their little child abuse and murder scheme going on. Yeah, so it is them trying to like playing God and getting around the laws in order to do so, and doing it because they could and because they wanted to fulfill some personal goals.
Right. When did you start writing this book? The first?
2017, I
2017.
believe.
So you seem to have channeled some aspects of the world that were coming to light just a little bit after you started writing. It's almost like you're a little bit prophetic.
Oh
Um,
gosh, you have no idea because one of the series is like going to go deep into AI, and I was planning that last year, and then now we've got like all this going on.
exploded.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking like,
Yeah. Maybe you've got a highly developed intuition or something. Because I mean, obviously we had almost exactly what happened in your story as an example of recent events. And then now, of course, with the child abuse stories coming out on a larger scale and becoming known, just how big that whole thing is as well, and that a large amount of it is hidden in parts of the world that maybe people aren't looking.
like the residential schools, or
Well, no, I'm actually thinking of so The Sound of Freedom. Have you heard of the movie that's making its rounds, being trashed by
I've
the media at the moment?
I've heard of it, but I must say I'm out of the loop still because
Right.
yeah,
So it's based on a true story of a security guard or something who discovered this and then started following it around, and it's essentially, as he described in one case. So Jeffrey Epstein, you've heard of that
yes,
name, obviously. So imagine Epstein Island, and as this guy describes it, that's only one of possibly hundreds of islands that are the same around the world. Um, and that's the sort of, you get this massive scale of just
yeah,
abuse. And so this is all sort of starting to become, we're in a period where we're becoming a bit more aware of it. They're not, as far as well, I don't know. There are claims that they're not really experimenting, but there are some claims that, true or not, I don't know, that the rich people are using these kids also for certain chemicals in their bloodstream as well. So there comes your
yeah,
experimenting part also. Seems
yeah,
too incredible to believe, but given what we've been
yeah.
through in the last 3 or 4 years, I don't know if anything's too incredible to believe anymore.
Yeah, yeah. There is actually it's known locally that there's a human trafficking ring, and every time they pop back up on Facebook, there's a new post going like, "Guys, watch out, they're back."
That's in
And
near where you are, or
that's where I am. Yeah, there's on the island, there's this group that goes around, and they're known to lure young women, and I don't know why they're not in jail, but I guess charges didn't stick, or I don't know. But it's known that that's happening, and there's a lot of there's also the murdered and missing Indigenous women that people that they go missing, and uh
yeah. So I mean, it's not just indigenous. When I was
yeah,
there in Vancouver
yeah.
back in the late 90s, um, there was a serial murderer who not
Picton.
rivaled. He was well beyond Jack the
Oh
Ripper, right?
God.
And it was just coming out as I was leaving
Oh
Vancouver. But when it was discovered, the scale of this, um, yeah, it was just
yeah,
unbelievable, right?
that was Robert Picton, right?
I didn't hear a name at the time because it was, like I said, it was
Yeah,
just coming out when I was leaving Vancouver. But
Robert Picton and his pig farm,
yeah, the
where
pig farm, I remember that. Yeah,
he would
yeah,
take people off of usually sex workers
yeah, exactly.
and murder them and then feed them to his pigs.
Yeah, that was horrendous. Yeah, we're getting a bit
Yeah.
dark here. I'm gonna have to put a trigger warning on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's speaking just of hidden things within
Yeah.
society, like that when that came out, and I think it was in the 30s, if I'm remembering, like up in that level of people. Um, and Jack the Ripper is infamous for 5 murders, and here's a guy doing these kind of horrendous things. Um,
Yeah.
to dozens and dozens. But we're getting a bit dark here, so maybe maybe
Yeah,
we'll
it's
move
going
it to
going to go into the true crime podcast.
yeah, exactly. So moving it to a bit more fun aspect. So this is also at one level, it's an action adventure story as well, with a sort of motley crew on their ship. And I was wondering if you had the opportunity to have a spaceship and your own crew, would you take that opportunity and sort of, Guardian Galaxy of it, kind
Oh,
of drive it around the.
with the caveat that I wouldn't that there's enough safeguards that I wouldn't just kill myself by, not knowing how to do a spaceship.
Yeah,
Yes, I
assuming
think
you
that
knew
would
what you
be,
were doing. Yeah.
assuming I knew what I was doing and there was like a population out there, I love it.
Yeah.
I would absolutely join this crew on the spaceship.
So you join the crew that you created. That would be your ideal crew, do you
Yes,
think?
I would
Yeah.
love that. That would be so much fun.
Yeah. So I actually as part of preparation for this, I listened to an older interview you did, I think, with Matt Herron,
Yeah.
because I interviewed him a few episodes ago, and he asked you at one point which characters you identified with of your crew. So if you could maybe, I don't know if your answer has changed at all,
Well,
or is it the same answer from then?
I would say I would most identify with Karen, who's the main character of the original sci-fi, and that's more my personality because she's responsible and such. But these days, I'm really having a lot of fun with Sujin, the new main character. Even though I'm not like her, she is a lot bolder and um, a lot braver than I am. But yeah, that'd be Sujin.
Yeah, so I was wondering, do you think she's like your darker or more aggressive hidden side coming out?
She's she's like my all of my dark humor. Um, but if I stopped filtering it, she says the things that sometimes I think, but I know I probably shouldn't say because people will look at me like I'm just nuts
Right.
and gets into situations and then deals with them and like, when you've had time to think about a situation, you go, this is how I would have liked to react to that, but that's not how I would, you know, normally you just de-escalate everything and try not to get an assault charge. And she's just like, no, let's go.
So do you think there's an alternate universe somewhere with a version of you that is her, basically?
Oh, uh, in reality, no, but there's definitely an alternate universe in my brain where it's just like, oh, let's.
Question, I guess, if we got philosophical, the question would be, is that any different than the alternative, I suppose? But that's maybe too philosophical for this show. You can answer if you want, though.
You'd have to clarify the question. I'm not quite understanding it.
Well, I'm thinking of, so I'm developing my own series where let's say I have highly advanced AIs that create their own universes within what is effectively their minds, and these universes are populated by entities that, as far as they're aware, are alive, right?
Hmm.
And so within our minds as creators and authors, we create these characters, and the question is, well, how real are they? Are they actual? Because we have created them within our minds, right? So these characters exist within us, and then there's the question of, so that's why I said a bit philosophical. How real are these characters? Are these characters actually, could they be considered real in some sense?
Not on this plane of reality. They're very real to me. But there's actually a book that you might be interested in that does attempt to answer and follow that logic. It's called Memory and Dream by Charles DeLint. And the concept is, what if the things we create in art um, actually gain a life? What if they actually are able to interact with, like, if you try hard enough and make a painting of a person, and you've put so much of your soul into that painting that they kind of become real in a sense. What if they actually became real and started being like, huh? And that was a really, really good book. Bit dark, but I feel in general though that for me the characters are real to me in that they occupy my brain. Um, Depending on what kind of spirituality and or religion that you subscribe to, um, perhaps they could be considered real as in beings that exist on a certain plane. Because certainly they become real in readers' heads, don't they?
Well, exactly.
Like,
That's what I was thinking. I mean, the readers then, along with the author, create a shared, um, let's say, a shared entity, or a shared universe, or a shared awareness of these creatures as well. These creations.
yeah,
Um,
there's actually one of the underlying aspects of how the mutant magical powers work in the sci-fi is that there is a shared consciousness or shared subconsciousness among humanity that if you tweak it, the things that's what powers these powers. Yeah.
Yeah, for those who feel this is getting too philosophical, though, I'll take it into a sort of a harder modern area where pretty soon those characters might actually be able to have and be expressed in their own form. So I have seen a talk recently. So I'm speaking, of course, with AI, and specifically generative AI, which is currently making the news for the artwork and people writing books with it and stuff. But one of the people from NVIDIA, which is a graphics card
Mhm.
manufacturer, so they gave a talk where they were saying, well, we'll be able to create, like within video games or within any other sort of computer environment, characters which can be rendered in real time. And will we just have to give them a backstory, and they will interact with the user, with a person, without any scripted programming, right? And so at that point you start to wonder, these characters are starting to have a life. They're not like self-aware necessarily, but they're starting to have a life and actually exist. So there's a way that they could come out of the book onto the into the world.
Yeah. I'd probably be preparing myself for a few lawsuits if they did. Uh, but personally, I have had too many weird, spooky coincidences in my life to I like to play it safe and just treat any unscripted encounters with politeness and yeah, just in case. And I'm not a programmer. I don't know code. I've just had way too many spooky coincidences and stuff happen that have just made me go like, whoa, okay.
So does it
And
make you think we're in a simulation at all? That kind of spookiness? That's like,
no, I try to stay away from that because that's a spiral into certain complicated mental health, and I try not to complicate my mental health too much. Um, my ex did that enough. Uh,
yeah, I find it interesting that these kind of questions posed largely by science and technology are basically circling around back to religion, aren't they? I mean, if we're in a simulation, then there's presumably a creator who's given the simulation a purpose, and that's essentially Genesis, right? So,
yeah,
so we're just putting a technological spin on the Bible, basically.
yeah, or the it could just be a system that is already existing, but we haven't discovered yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Similar to how we discovered evolution. Perhaps there's something else, like perhaps there's other things that we haven't discovered.
Yeah, a favorite one growing up was the idea of the universe being fractal, such that if you go up or down, it's kind of, oh, it's mirrored isn't the right word, but you get the impression from there. You go down further and you get like, kind of like quantum mania, new life
Oh,
forms
I
down there.
see.
Or if you go up, you get this. So the idea that our solar system is almost like an atom. This
Yeah,
is
I
this is a
understand
kid's
that.
version of it, but yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
was one thing. But we're getting pretty philosophical now, so I'm taking it back to a bit of science fiction.
Back to the
Um,
explosions.
yeah. So we'll move into the last part of the show, which starts with the lightning round, which never is very lightning, so don't worry about it. It's basically five A or B questions to warm you up for the two big questions we finished with.
All right.
These are mostly pop culture, so we'll just start with so in Star Wars then, Luke or Han?
Han.
Is that because the bad boy, or just because he's more interesting backstory?
I think it's a more interesting character. I don't know.
If you were, I'm curious now, so I was spin off from my lightning round. If you were writing a Han, and I'm thinking now almost like him as a male version of your mechanic. So if you
He's
were
basically,
writing a Han, would he have much more colorful language?
uh, depending on if I were contracted by Lucasfilm or Disney, no. It you'd probably have a few more colorful epithets depending on the situation, but it really is based on the character, right? I've got characters that don't swear, but just the current ones do.
Okay. So question 2 then is Sarah Connor from the Terminator
Mhm.
or Ellen Ripley from Alien?
Oh, that'd be Ripley.
Okay.
I'm more familiar with the Alien franchise, and I really like Ripley. Yeah.
So as I mentioned with the sort of the Phoenix saga, so going comic books a tiny bit here, Jean Grey or Scarlet Witch?
Jean Grey, because I'm more familiar with Jean Grey than I am with Scarlet Witch.
Okay. And I'd heard, I don't know how much of a rumor this is, but there's a possible battle between the two in the Deadpool 3 movie. I don't know. I heard this in passing somewhere. Don't take this as a serious, but
Well, I unfortunately only have a conversational level in Comic Nerd. I have friends who have like read all of the universe and all the spin-offs and such who would probably be able to answer questions in great detail. But unfortunately, my only experience is from the cartoons, the movies, and rumors.
right. So we're staying with the MCU. So have you seen the MCU movies at all then?
I've seen the standard slot of movies, except for a couple of the more recent ones. I have not gone through all of the TV series. They're producing them faster than I can consume them at my current rate.
Right. So my question was going to be with the Marvels movie coming up. The choice of Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, or I think the other one's called Photon.
Oh, okay. Well, alas, I have not watched the Marvel show, although this movie looks like it's going to be incredible fun. I'm probably going to go with Photon because I just finished the that Wanda,
Oh, WandaVision.
yeah, the WandaVision one, and she seemed really interesting. So I really want to watch this movie when it comes out.
Okay. So so you also mentioned Firefly as a comparison for one of your stories. So I was going to go with your preference for Star Wars, the original trilogy, or Firefly.
I would go with Firefly on that one.
And is there a reason for that?
It's I really like the it's a lot more fun. I really like the banter and I just prefer Firefly. As I also really like Star Wars though, so it's but it's got more of that overarching plot, right?
Right.
Whereas
Yeah.
Firefly is like odd quick jobs and then a slow move up to the plot, right? And
You spend
I really like that.
much more time with the characters interacting and things than
Yeah,
Firefly.
and exploring a lot of different situations.
Right. Oh, so have you ever played StarCraft 2?
I have not.
Okay, there's a character in there who grows in power until she becomes essentially strong enough to almost take over the at least the segment of space that's
Mhm.
it made me think of the development of the powers, and I think was that Karen that her powers started growing near the end of the series.
Yes, there's a certain series of events that happens that causes a dramatic change. Um, and it's ties in with the theme a bit and the climax.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just I thought of it from that character as well. It's interesting. So I think similar ideas floating around the ether of human thought.
Mhm.
So on to the two big questions to finish us off. Now, I did ask this one of a recent guest as well, but I think it's interesting because you also have this sort of, the action adventure kind of road trip space crew, right? So I'm wondering, for us to get to this kind of ability to do this road trip through the galaxy, whether it's again with your crew or on the Millennium Falcon, for example, or something. So I'm asking you to think of 3 things that we need to develop from this point forward. One of them technological, one of them infrastructural, and then one sort of psychosocial.
So technological, infrastructural, psychosocial. Okay, so technological, gonna need a way to travel faster, either through faster than light technology or the old Stargate type or any jump drives and such, just some faster than light technology where it won't take many years to reach a place and to develop that place. And then infrastructural, I guess having that technology existing long enough that it can become more into an actual thing that people can access and use rather than like currently we have the space shuttles going out on explorations. It's not like your average Joe can just go, hey, I'm gonna just prop up my space shuttle and go to Venus. So infrastructurally, there would need to be some sort of ability to do that and make it so that more people can access that, even if it's just the military. Because it's hard to have a story when there's only like 20 crew on a mission doing
Right.
science stuff, right? Although people do really manage it, so that's nice. The next one was psychosocial. That's tough. Probably ability to unify better. Although I'd say many countries do very well at working together. Like that the United Nations are just through the different space programs working together. Like continuing that space program working together thing, it just needs to be less war and such threatening large amounts of people in order to start going forward.
Because one thing I'm wondering with psychosocial, the aspect is, like, are we prepared to go into this vast emptiness between planets and stars, like psychologically?
Oh, I see. Like
As well,
going into the
cooperation is also a big thing, but I mean, there's a lot of different aspects involved, but that's one of them. And the let's say
yeah.
the loneliness of starting to build a society on another world as well, or even
Yeah.
even a space station or something.
I'd say if you could manage to have like a decent internet connection, you could do that. But of course, that's not going to happen when you're going on. It's got like the 16-minute lag, and you can't really do that. Um, hmm.
Maybe Elon Musk will find a way with Starlink.
Would people trust that?
I don't know if they trust it now, but yeah, if it's the only option, I
Yes.
guess. Surprising
Yeah.
what people will trust if something's the only option.
Yeah, well, there's one thing about getting satellite internet to your farm. It's another thing about relying on it for I, I mean, but that'd be interesting. Like how would you get that kind of direct connection? I don't know enough about technology. Let's just say that.
We'll just have to invent an Ansible or something. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned with the infrastructural one, because that's kind of where I was thinking. The idea we see in the movies, or well, in the science fiction books as well, the idea that, oh, you could just patch up your old junk heap and then hop to the next planet, right? I mean, obviously there has to be a significant infrastructure in place for the parts, for the, just that supporting the various components that a ship such as that needs, fuel and things like that,
Yeah.
which I think we're a long way from, but I think it
Hmm.
definitely needs to be developed.
Yeah.
Do you ever do you ever think about developing that kind of thing within your stories, or is it just something like a black box? Okay, we have it, that's great, like a gas station or something. We don't worry about where everything comes from.
It's I've been described as a solid 5 on the scale of hard to soft sci-fi, whereas I pay a little bit more attention to actual physics and such. Um, but for me, just having it exist, like if my like I don't pick up a phone and go like, ah, yes, this is the technology that uses this to connect with things, and I can, it's got a wireless connection type of thing. I don't I don't think about that when I pick up the phone. My character doesn't think about how her shower works when she's taking it on the spaceship. Uh, People don't typically think about how the computers work, how we're, you know, they have a vague idea maybe, but otherwise, I have no idea how this car works, but we're still driving it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have one more question, and then
Mhm.
we are done for the evening. So I don't have too many Canadians on. So as a fellow Canuck, then I wanted to ask you, what role do you think Canada can or should play in the development of the future of humanity, moving perhaps towards the stars or whatever you might view that future to be?
Well, I think we did pretty well on the Canada arm. The,
That's you're
uh,
going back a ways, though.
look, they taught us very well in elementary school. Um, I mean, in along the news, there's always a highlight on Canadian astronauts coming back and generally just promoting peace and like, space programs. And I think Canada does have a fairly strong presence in space stuff. Trying to think of like the actual scientific word for it, aeronautical, extraterrestrial, exoplanets and stuff. Astronomy, I think we've got a fairly good presence in that because I know the local university does. They've got stuff going up on shuttles. They've got like they've built like it's a lot of people in scientific institutions working together across different borders to make things happen. And I really, really like that. And I do think that Canada has a fairly can have a very strong role going forward with that.
Do you think if I mean, we talk of the brain drain a lot in Canada. Does it feels a bit disturbing to me that we tend to have to send our people, or at least our ideas and experiments, etc., to other places without having, as we were just speaking of infrastructure, um, something within Canada that can support and develop that further as well. Um,
Yeah, there's that, but it does make sense to centralize things like technology, where if you can get the parts to a certain place, you can have that specific laboratory, and other people will not have to build that like type of thing. Um, Canada is a huge country, right? And ev even if we were to have like a centralized space station or space place, I'm pretty sure we do have something. Uh, Um, we'd still have to send people there, right? There'd still be travel. So why not just go elsewhere if we're going to travel anyway? I don't
yeah,
know. I'm talking out of my butt at this point because I'm not at all up to date on the specifics about the Canadian situation on with STEM in science. I just happen to read a lot about what the local university is doing, what other Canadian contributions, because they come up on the news, right? They go, oh, there's this space mission going on, and Canada has contributed. Like, and they go and interview the team, and it's very nice. And then there's astronauts at the Calgary Stampede. So
Yeah, no, I wonder if there's like, I agree with you in terms of, I mean, it's very expensive, launch pads and stuff like that. I wonder if there's another way, because Canada has a wide range of climate and geography. You could experiment with things like habitats, like not, less hospitable habitats, for example, to try and mimic other harsher planets or something.
I seem to remember that there might actually be those things going on in universities in Canada, though. And
There's been a
another
few
thing
of them
with,
around North America.
yeah, and another thing with the launch pads is I trying to remember my rocket science is not great, but I think there was a specific reason why you needed to have the launch pads around the equator.
Yeah, I think just launch windows for weather and things.
That,
largely.
yeah, I don't think we're going to get much of a launch window in the winter in Canada.
Not consistent, no. Well, who knows? Maybe the less ozone content near the Arctic will be helpful. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting off now. So it has been great chatting with you. A lot of topics we could waffle on for a long time, but that's about all the time we have today. So before we go, perhaps you could tell us remind us what you have coming out next and where to find you online, and then if you'll be at any upcoming events.
Well, I've got I'm still working on the spin-off with the foul-mouthed engineer that gets up to a lot of great misadventure, and it's really incredibly fun. So if you like black humor, and then serious storytelling, like serious story, it's probably right up a lot of people's alley. That's probably not going to be out for a while because I'm still finishing book 2 and I want to get book 3 finished before we go to launch. You can find me at kgorman.ca, and that's where, if things are going to start launching, I will put that up right there. You can also get a free book on the new series to see if it's up to your taste, because I do have a novella out that I offer for free. And
will you be at any events? Your time doesn't.
I don't think I will be. I would like to go to the 20 Books conference again this year, but I'm not sure if it's going to work out for me this year. Perhaps I think next year is going to be better in terms of events for me. Locally, I will probably be at there's a little Victoria marketing group that we have here, and so I'm probably I might host one of those meetings and possibly turn up for any library related stuff.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So Kay Gorman, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. Information and links related to this and all episodes are available at alternatefutures.co.uk. I'm also over at Substack under Alternate Futures, where I post articles on science fiction, socio-technological issues, and futurism. You can subscribe for free or sign up for a paid account if you'd like to support the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not share it with friends, writers, and other sci-fi fans you know? And if there are any indie sci-fi creators you'd like to see featured, send me a message at podcast@alternatefutures.co.uk. Once again, I'd like to thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join me on the next episode.
This is the future. Human error. Evolution. This is the future.